Well, while we're chatting, and I have no problem chatting and talking about this, or Dill, if I can help give you some advice, I'll be glad to do so. You're saying the idea for time travel is pretty much they're forced to solve it, but the catch is them needing to work together and figuring it out. Each hour they can search a specific area and the like. What I need from you is an opinion on what. Hey, Diadems, welcome. Yeah, just let me know what you're seeking, Funny Dill. All right. While we're talking, I want to show you the cursory dungeon prompt worksheet that we're going to be using to build our dungeon step by step. It has some page numbers for reference to the DMG because the Dungeon Master's Guide can hold your hand through a lot of this. We are going to be drawing on our experiences with, with the setting we've made so far. But we're going to leave some things open because this is going to be its own contained adventure. And before I get too far into here, because it's been a little while, we've made an outdoor dungeon before, and I'm going to show it off real quick to y'all. Dill says, the opinion I need is character knowledge. From the loop they're in, I'm thinking of making them remember everything in the loop. However, they may forget what happens if they die. That's really going to be up to your understanding or your patience or your willingness to track. Because it'll be very easy for players to accidentally or on purpose, or a blend of both and accidentally on purpose, remember things that they shouldn't remember because of the reset. And so if the players are willing to play along with that game and track their knowledge as an inventory of sorts, there you go. But just remember that that's going to be a bit of a bottleneck for things. Yeah, I'm funny if you just lay out all the rules. You know, you are creating that spoken, that social contract with the players of, this is where this adventure is going, and here are some basic tenets, and here we go. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's bad or anything. If it's the first idea you had, it's a gut instinct, it's something that you're passionate about, then go with it. Have fun with it. Hello, New Monica. Welcome. All right, so I wanted to show something off here. In one of our prior campaigns in 2016, it was 2018 was campaign number 16, called Operation Welcome Mat. And this was a series of adventures that took place after our Mesotopian adventures and campaigns wound up. And the region of Mesotopia was going to be taking the fight to the Shadowhar Empire. In this process, we ended up creating an outdoor dungeon. And I didn't just draw it out here. Oh. Was slow getting here from my game, distracted by the VTM Bloodlines 2. Oh, yeah. There's an unofficial, unless it's been official, there's an unofficial announcement or reveal or leak of the new vampire game coming out. Interesting that they chose Bloodlines for the sequel, because Bloodlines well, wait, hang on. Was Bloodlines the good one, or was Bloodlines the meh one? I'm trying to remember the difference. Oh, it's official now. They're streaming the announcement on Twitch. Gotcha. But, so, I've only played the one, though I have heard people refer to one of the two as the not good one. I'm passing on an opinion I've heard. It's not my personal one, but I just understand that there's a good one and a bad one. And I forget, one was Bloodlines and the other, I forget the name of the one. But you know what? If this is a sequel taking place, what, 10, 15, 20 years later, am I going to hold this? Am I going to hold this to the prior one? Mm-mm. Even if it is the good one that I'm thinking about, I can't believe that I'm forgetting. Anyway. So Pneumatica, as any sort of bombs are revealed for that, if you can be our reporter in the field and let us know what's going on, I'd appreciate it. So here we have a valley dungeon, okay? This is an outdoor dungeon, right? If you conceptualize it, a dungeon isn't just an underground set of tunnels with rooms. In the majority it is. But it is really, in a broader concept, a dungeon is a space where there is some kind of a limit or a confinement. And you have an end goal. Escape the dungeon, steal the treasure, etc., so forth. And when we were setting up the dungeon for Operation Welcome Mat, the primary goal was for the party to infiltrate this valley, destroy the supply depot, right here, destroy the supply depot and report back. So they're on a mission. Could they technically just like leave? Yeah, I suppose so. And if you want to look this up, you should be able to do so on YouTube. It should be up there. If you want to get the full report, I'm not going to go over everything here. But the party would start here, and they could go by the road. They could kind of sneak over the land and the grass. They could stick to the water. You have multiple paths, despite its fair linearity. They have encounters they can have along the way. They can choose to go by a checkpoint, like an official checkpoint, and along the way, if they want to disguise themselves or hide in a hay cart from some locals passing through, or there's these watchtowers that are more of a military barrier than just someone that's, checking farmers, going back and forth, whatever. Or you could try and bypass it here. And then the dungeon can split. You can go down a waterfall and discover a secret here. You can stick to the path and go to the supply depot. Right? There's all kinds of other things that you can do in this dungeon. And it's a dungeon because it is confined. You can't easily leave. You're there for a purpose, and you got to get it done and then get back out. Oh, pardon me. I'm going on about 3.5 hours of sleep today, everyone. Maddie, have you ever had a game that you always wanted to run or play that you never had the chance? Like it as an example, Shadowrun? There's a lot of games I would like to run, but I just don't have the time to do it. Or at least I don't have the time to do it in a way that I feel is proper. Kill Imperials is a Skyrim. Well, in this case, yeah, you have to kill the invading Shadowhar Empire soldiers. Pardon.
Well, it's that time of the month again.
Azrael, welcome, and thank you so much for re-upping. Enjoy your spicy queso badge next to your name. Good evening to you, Azrael. Was this the one with the rust monsters? Maybe? Let's see. I know that we made our... the region was Gyeongga. Right? So we had Kandor. Here's the northern tip of Mesomaska. This was Kandor expanded. And this was Aslandia. And this was the northern part of Fallfire. Because on Operation Welcome Mat, that was because the Imperials were coming from the northeast, coming down this way. And so the point was to try and take the the fight to them. By the way, all of this is in the 20... You could get all of these documents on our Discord. If this intrigues you and you want to watch the video, go to the 28 workshop channel on our Discord. You can download these Word documents. And here's a step-by-step campaign. Takes you all the way to 20. Yeah, I don't know offhand if this had the rust monsters in it. This is more outdoorsy. So anyway, look, we kept it simple. Designing a dungeon doesn't have to be terribly complex, or especially if you consider an outdoor dungeon, it's super not complex. Present a region, and instead of twisting hallways, you have canyons, you have sand dunes, you have streams, or you can have not a physical barrier per se, but you have an outdoor pressure keeping them involved in the area by way of some kind of a countdown timer. In a sense, Tomb of Annihilation is an outdoor dungeon. Now, it has indoor dungeons within it, but the overarching campaign takes place on a peninsula that's rather isolated, and there are various goals to meet along the way of an ultimate resolution to the story. Hello, Coffee Cat, welcome. Dark Wolf says, that reminds me, you and Volvo are going to try and talk to you about running Made RPG. Or are you talking to someone else, Dark Wolf? To like Coffee Cat or someone. As a concept artist, I have to ask every time, who built the dungeon, why, what purpose does it have? Exactly. You know, the dungeon is there to provide service or to produce a good or whatnot. So in this case, you know, the dungeon was built by nature, but it was occupied, right? The enemies occupying it have done so for the specific cause of creating a choke point. And because we have a supply depot here in the canyon, this is supplying the Shadowheart Empire's troops with weapons and food and clothes and all this other stuff, which is why that's the goal of the dungeon, is to creep through the encounters, make some decisions, maybe find something secret, get here, make a decision, and then escape and get out. Lots of things can be dungeons. In Ghostbusters, I've turned strip malls into dungeon-like things. Yes, exactly, Pneumonica. Oh, that was to me. We're talking and joking about it after the game. Canyons are not seen enough in my own tabletop experiences, Lith. They are very cool. Speaking of Volvo, yeah, hey Volvo, thank you for the raid. What were you playing? And as for running Made RPG, I don't know, it'd be interesting. I'd have to think. I'd have to approach things differently. Maybe, maybe it's not so much running Made RPG, but maybe I could take a week or two and we can discuss Made RPG on the side in a similar way. You know, we could make some random characters and try and think up an interesting adventure for a band of maids. That could be kind of cool. Speak the name of the adversary, says Azrael to Dark Wolf. Well, thank you so much for that raid, Volvo and crew. Oh, you're doing some art. Very cool. Where were you drawing? So yeah, look, this, you know, we had an entire discussion. This is really the only prompt that you would need. Now, familiarity with the characters and the storyline is an underpinning, or it's the foundation of how we were able to come across this. And you're going to see stuff, you know, puzzles or setbacks, a big climax in some way. Maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't, and we'll discuss that with our own prompt sheet. But I did want to show you that we've done something like this before, and I hope that you can take some inspiration from this kind of an exercise. Was drawing a character for a friend still very rough? Well, hey, Volvo, it's awesome, you know, that you're streaming, and you know, always feel free to share that on the Discord so we can help get some eyeballs on your channel. So here is sort of Dungeon Prompt 2.0. It's a little bit more robust than what you saw before, and I think it'll still provide an excellent skeleton to put some meat on the bones. And we can always draw this out as well. Yeah, Volvo, look, I appreciate you lurking and the raid and all of, and you know, being a part, especially on our Tuesday games, for stepping up and being an NPC. But don't be afraid to share your channel with the rest of the community. It's not competition to me, even if we're broadcasting at the same time. I want people to have options and to be able to be empowered to make choices and to help each other out in our own ways. I'm perfectly fine with that. Now, if you all have your Dungeon Master's guides, come on, everyone. I hope you came to school prepared, right? You knew we were going to have some homework. We discussed this yesterday. If we go to page 73, this is going to give us some prompts. Now, ultimately, this is for adventure planning. Whoa, hey Nella, welcome. Great to have you here. Pull up a chair. You're sitting at a table in a game store. You know, we're talking about D&D, our own experiences. If you have questions or comments, you want to say what you've been up to, welcome back. The reason why identifying the party's goal is important is because when you're plotting as a DM, you should keep the advancement toward the goal in mind. Is what you're running taking a step towards the goal? Could be a small step, could be a side step that could, you know, you take a side step now, but it'll take you 3 steps ahead later, instead of just going 1 step with everything else. We're making an outdoor dungeon, so we could use a wilderness goal. Though, if we're treating the dungeon as, we could choose, we could do one of each. Let's roll a d20 and let's look at the dungeon goals first and discuss how can we take something more of a traditional dungeon, you know, caves and basements and sewers and all that. Roll our d20. 17. Win a bet or complete a rite of passage by surviving in the dungeon for a certain amount of time. And for an information or history or religion-based campaign, this is very, very good. Win a bet or complete a rite of passage by surviving in the dungeon for a certain amount of time. So here we go. We already have our constraints. They don't have to be, you know, 100-foot walls of thick stone. They don't have to, you know, they don't necessarily even have to be winding corridors and locked doors. It is a matter of honor or money or some other peer pressure that is keeping us in the location. So we could escape any time. You know, with many dungeons, you just go back and leave. But this is what is going to act as our walls and our boundaries. Diadems. Well, you know. Oops. Now, continuing down from this, there might be some other goal at stake. This could end up being a side quest. This could be, you know, ultimately we're going to survive, but maybe this could be, how are we going to do that? You know, surviving is great. Hopefully we're very good at it by now, especially as a team. Do we need to do something to survive, though? Let's roll a 12-sided die. We rolled an 11. Interfere with the operation of a business. Pardon me. Well, we have already discovered through the storytelling we've been doing bit by bit that there are raiders, there are sort of these, you know, Bedouin tribes, these desert nomads that maybe are raiders, or they're just sort of, you know, are they predisposed to violence or piracy? You know, do we have sand pirates? They ride around on wind-powered sleds to try and take down caravans. That's a business, right? In our prompt. So they have to survive. However, in doing so, what if they don't just survive in the desert, but they break up a slaver camp? You know, spend whatever 20 days in the desert. That's the dungeon. Can you survive? And in so doing, they come across one of these, you know, tribal nomadic camps, and there's a bunch of slaves. They could make a moral decision. You know, should they rescue the slaves? You know, what if they're from an opposing country and they're actually taken like prisoners of war that are forced to work? Civil, sorry if I missed a response for this. Any interest in showing your method randomizing a party of classes with mismatched subclasses? I don't know if there's necessarily anything too special. If we take a look at the character generator, if you found a way for something like that, you roll a d12 for the primary class, and then maybe another d12 to find out what the off subclass could be. So if we roll a 12 and for a character 1, it's a barbarian, but our subclass is going to be 7 from the paladin. And so you come down here to paladin, and we would roll a d3. It is a barbarian with the Oath of Vengeance subclass. So that's I don't know, that seems to be the simple way to do it to me. However, I don't know, that could cause some interesting balancing issues. I don't know, I haven't really played around with that. But because classes all get different abilities at different levels, and it's supposed to work rather harmoniously with the subclass, you might end up having really awesome broken combos, or you might end up having some really bad dead levels. It would be, yeah, you'd have to do a lot of finagling, Civil. So, for example, if we rolled this barbarian and then we got a wizard subclass, barbarians don't get spells. And the subclass doesn't provide spell casting. The main class of wizard does. So I suppose if you want, the school of that wizard would allow a barbarian to maybe make scrolls at half cost for the chosen school, but that doesn't necessarily imbue a whole lot of other things. Yeah, right, Ezreal? A group perhaps deforesting an area or otherwise destroying it by mining or drilling, and they need to be stopped. Yeah, so Lith, we're gonna have this take place in the Lomosh region that we developed over the course of last week, and we're adding a little bit more to it this week to finish things out. Now, if we really want to throw in a villain, we could go through the whole process like we did last night and create another villain. Who's going to be the leader of this business? If you want something that's just kind of a quick and dirty, right? We can come down here and just roll a d20. We rolled a 20. A misguided humanoid zealot. So this is your dungeon boss. We could go through and add a lot of detail if we want, or otherwise, if you just say, all right, I kind of get the direction, we can proceed. Now, do they have an ally? Is there someone maybe who issued the bet? Is there someone who's willing to go out and help them survive? We do have we made 2 NPCs. There could be a lot more in this adventure, honestly. But who might be an adventure, or in this case, a dungeon ally, who could provide them information, go with them, or otherwise help them prepare for what is to come? We got a 2, an inexperienced adventurer. Could we go through and generate an NPC? Possibly. The inexperienced adventurer might be, I don't know, might be the kid who takes you to the starting place in the desert. You know, he knows how to get there. He knows, you know, general stuff about scorpions and sun and, you know, all the things you need to survive. And he'll stick with you. It could turn into a bit of an escort mission, in a sense. Maybe not escort, but, you know, survival. So who offered this opportunity to go into this dungeon? Who made them aware of it? Who might be offering the reward? Right? Win a bet or complete a rite of passage by surviving the dungeon. Who will make good on that? This is going to be a D20. We rolled a 4. Sorry, pardon me. I am... Whew. Patron is 4, is a local ruler. That's fine. It's almost like a Scooby-Doo plot, right? You know, if you can survive the night in the haunted house, you'll get the deed to my dead uncle's property. Hey, Vayma, and hello, Roger. A giant werebeaver? It'd be interesting to have one of those out in the desert. No one would suspect it. An inexperienced adventurer wandering the wastes. An orc priest of Grumpsh, asks Azrael. Civil, yeah, I agree. It would probably be too much extra effort for the usual full series treatment. Yeah, I think it's something good to bring up and to challenge people, but there's not really going to be a way to bring balance to it in a way that's going to be friendly for the broadcast. And I'm not saying that as a lazy person. I at least not when it comes to, I don't want to do the work. It's not that I can't do the work or I don't want to. I think it could be fun. But the time to sit down and to discuss a mismatch of class and subclass, I think that would be kind of, I don't know, it would be kind of time consuming. Shaggy, like Zoiks. Oh man, this should be one of those win the Princess Bride deals. Yeah, so, hey, and you know what, Civil, if you or other people have other ideas for content for the channel, I'm completely open to that. I'm fine, you know? What Dark Wolf just brought up, Maid RPG. Would we be willing to do maybe a week of Maid RPG? In fact, I don't know, it could be interesting to run, you know, if we take a week to go through Maid RPG, then what if on the following week we go through an adventure with the 4 sessions that we have? So it's actually roleplay, right? So Tuesday is the Tuesday game. I don't think that's going to change. But then, I don't know, we take a fun week and we'll run a maid adventure and see, you know, similarities, differences, or just have some fun. I'm not necessarily opposed to that as a special occasion. All right, so there's our ally and our patron. How are we gonna introduce this dungeon? Now, this is adventure introduction, and in the DMG, you can use this to plot an adventure or a campaign. I'm using dungeon and adventure synonymously for the purposes of our exercise. Let's roll a d12. 2. While traveling in the wilderness, the characters notice the entrance to the adventure location. Well, that works out pretty well, considering that the dungeon is the wilderness. And so this might end up moving it to a different kind of wilderness. No, let's we'll jot it down and see where this takes us. While traveling in the wilderness, the characters notice the entrance to the adventure location. Now, while they are down in, if you remember stuff like the adventure climax, that was a dungeon aspect, because I was in that exercise. I was using dungeon and adventure synonymously as well. If we want to have some kind of a climax in our dungeon, you know, how will the goal be achieved? We can put that in here. We know what we're trying to get, but what happens, how do we go about getting it? 7. A portal opens to another plane of existence. Creatures on the other side spill out, forcing the adventurers to close the portal and deal with the villain at the same time. Oh, but there's a twist. Continuing to scroll. All of this is awesome for framing, writing prompts, for coming up with an adventure on your own. You want a moral quandary? Bada boom, here it is, and it even goes through and explains it. However, while they're in the dungeon, what is something that's unexpected that's going to happen? They are going to learn or have happened number 3. The adventurers are prohibited from killing the villain, but the villain has no compunctions about killing them. Do you want a side quest in your dungeon? You could. I think this is more for adventure. You know, we kind of already have our other goal for what we're creating. Objectives, create, and if you want to know how to go through and create combat encounters, it's right here, page 82. You know, if we want to think of some fun combat encounters, what are some prompts that we're going through, right? So we have desert area, planar liminality, nomads, bandits, like sand pirates? And part of that, part of the encounters, Nella, I made this right before our I went live. So this will end up on our Discord at the end of the week. Yeah, maybe they encounter, it could be Thrycreen, it could be, yeah, various races or monsters. Now, traps or hazards to consider. Let's go to hazards first, as that's next up. The hazards described here are but a few examples of the environmental dangers found underground and in other dark places. Dungeon hazards are functionally similar to traps, which are described at the end of the chapter. And there's some effects: brown mold, green slime, webs, yellow mold. These are, you know, it could be air quality, water quality. If you play Tomb of Annihilation, you will learn that there is water everywhere. Not a lot of it is safe to drink unless you want disease or throat leeches, which is a parasite that will really kind of ruin your day if you contract that by drinking bad water. Other environmental hazards in a place like this could be heat, could be sand, right? The weather. Hazards could also be something almost like a trap and an encounter put together. What if you have things like giant sand lions and you have to tiptoe through their breeding grounds? And by the way, it's mating season. That is very much a hazard. That could be an encounter or something else. I don't have a blank one of this one, sir. I took the old prompt for the outdoor dungeon that I showed off from last year, and I went through and I kind of moved a couple things around. Yeah, in fact, you know, I'm going to offer this, by the way, as a shortcut, because a dungeon crawl, you can do it on a hex, you can do it on a graph, or, oh, come on. I've done this before as well, where the representation of a dungeon is nothing more than a board game that you all play. And so very, very much, you can just run Forbidden Desert in place of anything that we're going to be talking about. For a haunted house, in one of my previous campaigns, we ran the house, or whatever, Betrayal at House on the Hill. That was our dungeon. And so we assigned the characters in that game based on the character sheets. And then as the dungeon master, I allowed for some of their properties from their character to be used through the character in Betrayal at House on the Hill. As they're investigating, things were getting kind of creepy, things were getting kind of lethal. You know, and then someone got possessed by a ghost and tried to kill the others. And so don't hesitate also, for as much as we talk about random prompts like this, you know, and pulling everything together, and even though we have random prompts, everything is organic growth, and we're building towards something, you know, beautiful and holy in the D&D realm. You can just run this as the outdoor dungeon, and you can copy and paste a couple thematic elements from character sheets. You know, if you go through here, I'll show you. That's not going to be a very good representation. Here we go. Oh, are they not here? Did someone not put this away correctly? That's going to make me kind of sore. Ah, here we go. All right. All is well and good again. All right. So in this game, there are different players that have different roles and abilities. And so you can use these as a distillation of your character sheet. So for example, the water carrier, if you have a character that can create food and water, then maybe they play this character to represent this ability to do so. Right? You have a druid that can predict the weather. They play the meteorologist. You know, maybe you have a ranger that's really good in the desert. All right, so that's obviously green. So, there you go, everyone. Here's our outdoor dungeon. Now, I'll make it a little bit more detailed in this exercise, but I want to open this up as an option for you to consider. That is completely viable in a game of D&D, to play a game within the game and to have it represent what's happening, because that's what D&D is. It's a representation of a story. So anyway, you know, here's some examples of hazards. It could be the weather. It could be all kinds of things. Exhaustion, right? You know, we have weather effects, exhaustion, and dehydration, which could lead to it, but it might be its own thing. If we have something like webs, right? Maybe there's like dire huntsman spiders that live out in the desert, or, you know, tarantulas, and they leave ground webs. Webs could very well be a hazard in this dungeon, and this outdoor dungeon. Traps on page 120. In 5th edition D&D, I'm gonna tell you a dirty little secret. The only thing you need to make a trap of any kind is right here. Page 121. This is all you need if you want to make a trap. The trap could do whatever you want. It could be spitting blades. It could be a flame jet. It could be whatever you need it to be. If you want to scale it to some appropriate or inappropriate level, there you go. Those two little charts on 121. Every trap that you can conceive of can be tied to those charts. I hope that's exhilarating for you. I hope that frees you up. Yes, you can use the example traps here: pits, falling net, whatever. But if you do want to scale things, you want to create something unique and individual, all you really need is love. Well, maybe love. These charts, and if you want to even base something, you want falling net, but you want to be able to capture, you know, level 15 characters with a falling net, then just scale it up, and you'll still be able to do so. Yeah, trapdoor spiders and the like. Exactly, Ezreal. Ooh, that actually reminds me. I have something. Hold on a second. All right. Oh, look, it's a little sand dune, right? It just sort of blends right in. You know, I should paint this up. This would be fun. You know, here it is. Oh, yeah, look, you know, rocks and sand and grit. And as an adventurer passes over it, suddenly it opens wide. Oh, no, our horses. Blarg. So yeah, stuff like this can be a lot of fun. Yeah, like a sarlacc, you know, some sort of antlion, or, you know, they were talking about this monster last week over on D&D time. They're talking about the Ankh egg. Which, there we go. Oh, hey, there we go. There is Trustaflumph. Something like this would be excellent for an outdoor desert dungeon. And if you want to throw in things like Galebdurs and or other earth elementals, Zorns, you can do so. Now, you could consider something like an Ankh egg if you want to modify their behavior as a trap, right? It would be a trap to disable or necessarily to navigate through, or you could run it like a skill challenge. You know, to get through the couple miles of sand dunes. Or I guess the reverse of that, right? The pits that have the antlions that live at the bottom. But you gotta cross, right? You have to survive. And we can consider that as well. But yep, all you need right here. And a little bit of imagination. Trustaflumph, for having an awesome night. It was interesting that you got summoned like that. This is what we have so far for our outdoor dungeon. An Ankh keg holds the beer of life. Well then, I will offer a L'chaim. Now, I want to bring up a couple other things that we can consider. Not that we necessarily have to do things this way, but I do like bringing this up If we do, yes, an outdoor dungeon. When we are discussing dungeon creation, whether it's indoor or outdoor. The first is the concept of a 5-room dungeon. And you can say, well, all right, hang on. Oh, well, don't I tick? How do you have 5 rooms in a desert, in like a coastal / desert region that's outside? You use it as a prompt. If you have these 5 goals need to be met to survive the dungeon successfully, it may not matter the order in which you do it. Think of Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild has a lot of is an outdoor dungeon. And we can go, and by the way, you probably saw this was used as a guide in our prior outdoor dungeon that I showed you at the beginning of this segment. And if this helps you to break things down, you know, you can say, do we have an entrance with a guardian? Do we have a puzzle or role-playing challenge? Do we have a trick or setback? What is our big climax to the dungeon? And lastly, what is our reward / revelation? What do we get? So Lith, I hope as we're having this discussion, if you played Breath of the Wild and you're familiar with it, you're gonna get a lot of the same tones. Maybe you're gonna find yourself nodding your head and go, "Oh, yeah, I never thought of it that way." Or if you did think of it that way, I don't want to presume, then we're on the same wavelength. Since we have these prompts now, we can fill in what are the 5 goals. You know, would these be the towers that we have to climb and unlock, and you know, light a beacon or something? As we said, this could be like a Scooby-Doo style. You know, you got to sleep in my haunted mansion for a night, and then you'll inherit it, because the you have to win a bet or complete a rite of passage by surviving the dungeon for a certain amount of time. There's an inherent goal also to interfere with the operation of a business, which could be unsavory business, as it's still business. The villain of the dungeon is a misguided human zealot. Could that be one of the dungeons we've already created? I can see that. Or if we want to create, though, more of maybe a mini-boss or like a mid-campaign boss, that might be more appropriate for something along these lines. And could simply be one of the goals that's down here, right? You know, if he's misguided, does he have to get murked and, you know, left for the buzzards in the desert? Could that be the puzzle or role-playing challenge? This villain could even be a red herring, claiming to have one of the artifact eyes. And really, after all of this, you open up his puzzle box, and he does have an eye, but it's an old wooden eye that's definitely not magical. I don't know, maybe it belonged to his dad or something like that. It's kind of creepy. The person out here is definitely sunbaked. But, you know, maybe he saw a temple that was set up with traps and all sorts of elaborate things, and he developed that out in the desert too, to see if anyone wanted his eye, they'd have to get through him and all of his guardians first. You know, and meanwhile the guardians are just like, you know, scorpions on a string that he kind of lowers down on people, or, you know, just, some of it could be nonsense and even joking. Others could be super deadly. You know, you put like punji sticks down in a pit trap, and you poison it. And if you don't have poison, what you do is you cover those sharp sticks buried at the bottom of the pit with poo. Poo on a stick. And the reason you do that is because if you get poo in an open wound, especially a deep one, like a pointed stick after a fall, you want to talk about infection? You want to talk about a death? Hoo-wee. This mad person in the desert might very well have a lot of poo on sticks. Because what else is he going to do with it? Hey, Barbarian, welcome. You know, so we come through here, entrance with the Guardian, a trick or setback.
Poo on a stick hype.
Poo on a stick hype. Thank you, Lith. And I will add that poo on a stick hype to the total. Oh my goodness. Thank you all. We're over 130 into the 200 goal for this month to raise some extra money to help me get out to California for TwitchCon. Thank you. Wiggles disgustedly. Well, look, if you're in the desert and you want to protect this old fake eye, poo on a stick, look, any port in a storm. Any poo on a stick. So, consider these. And some of these might already be answered, right? If there's a trick or a setback, we had a twist. The adventurers are prohibited from killing the villain, but the villain has no compunctions about killing them. So this is where they would learn before the big climax with the villain, right? That they can't kill him. Why? He has information. You know, if you want to be, depending on the makeup of the party, right? We have a knowledge cleric, and maybe by this level, a cleric or a paladin or someone else can cast Speak with Dead. And they're like, well, we're just going to kill him, and then we're going to ask his corpse. Well, it just so happens this person lost his jaw in a rather brutal desert accident. Maybe you even offer that as foreshadowing. You can't help but think of The Last Crusade, the penitent man, the penitent man, the penitent man, the penitent man. By the way, corpses with no jaws don't speak with Dead. Which is why, by the way, everyone, free tip. If you want to run a villain as a DM, have him rip everyone's lower jaws off as he kills them. String up the corpses. Make an example, right? Dry out the skulls and use them as wind chimes, but remove the jaw. Not only is it creepy, it shows that the person knows what you're trying to do. And maybe at the end of it, heck, we could probably even include this in an outdoor dungeon. You see a bunch of people, you know, hung, stockades, crucified along a path, and they all have their jaws ripped off. Except the one at the end that's just there, arms outstretched, and waiting for people to come and speak to it. And that shows purpose, that shows foresight, and it also shows that this villain is aware of magic and the capabilities of it, making it a very dangerous foe indeed. And yet in this case, if they can't kill the BBG, how else are they going to resolve things? Well, there's a lot of prompts here that we can draw from which we can draw, I should say. Shame on me. Where do you live? We need to check the unsolved murder files in your state. Well, look, enough role-playing Barbarian Jim and you get all kinds of fun planning sessions. The perfect crime, you know. And as a DM, you have to justify how do you play a homicidal maniac? You know, as a regent, how do you justify slavery? You know, if that's the law of the land. You know, if you want to provide some compelling storytelling, there should be methods to the madness. There should be a reason for it. So you can follow the 5-room dungeon format, and to an extent, the prompt up here contains some of those aspects. If you want to get a little bit, or madness to the method, if you want to get a little bit more detailed even, I can suggest this dungeon checklist to you. These are 7 points. Oh, yeah. Nope. Yep, there we go. 7 points that can overlap with the 5. If you want to be super efficient about things. Well, I'm getting 5 points done. I'll get 7. So it's not just a basic tenet of an entrance with a guardian, a puzzle or role-playing challenge, a trick or setback, the big climax, and a reward or revelation. Does a dungeon have, in any particular order, something to steal? Shiny stuff, such as boring old coins, or the jeweled brazier of the zombie queen. Knowledge, such as where to find more treasure. Friendship, such as an amorous purple worm that follows you around and protects you when it's hungry and a little bored. Could that amorous purple worm be our inexperienced adventurer ally? Could that worm come in handy in the climax with this extra planar breach? Of course, that is if you kept it as a pet and didn't just slaughter it. A young amorous purple worm could very much be an inexperienced adventurer. It's fresh to the world. You know, it was following you around because it was curious. Is the party going to shoot at it and slay it because it is a purple worm, even if it's younger? Or will it try to understand it, adopt it, or train it? Hey, Plunder Loot, welcome. Trade goods. Territory, like a tower players can claim as their own. Something to be killed. This seems obvious. You know, what are the threats? Does this dungeon have something that can be defeated in a concrete way? Something to kill you. Well, even if it's not immediately relevant to the point of the dungeon, could there be a very powerful dragon sleeping underneath a sand dune that it is technically possible the players can encounter and will probably die? Yes. Are there, at all points in time, a 50% chance to encounter 2d6 bandits? Yes. Something to kill you could also be the weather, the hazards, the traps. Purple worm steak, says Azrael. Different paths. Now, this is what's nice about having an outdoor dungeon. You don't have to be too contrived about the different paths, right? You're creating a sandbox in this case. Well, a very literal sandbox. You know, Breath of the Wild, you can go out of order. And in some other games, like especially, Ubisoft games, you can go out of order. In our outdoor dungeon that we created, there are multiple paths. In this case, kind of literally. You could take the road. You can go over the country in the middle. You can go over the country and hug the mountain. You could go over the mountain, or you could stick to the rivers and lakes that you're used to. Just don't go chasing waterfalls. But actually, if you do, you're going to find a hidden village of people who could have helped you if you had only taken the time to go and do so, because they're suppressed and they don't like the Imperial occupiers here. So if you only took that time to explore a little bit, then you could have some allies in this previous dungeon. Right? Could that be, something to steal? It's definitely different paths. There's definitely someone to talk to. And it's always, it doesn't have to be a town guard. These are some very good examples. A rival adventuring party. Goblins never need explanations. There's goblins everywhere. A spell effect like a chatty magic mouth spell or something. A graveyard nymph. Ghosts. Make a sympathetic one. Everyone expects them to be jerks. A ghoul head sitting on a shelf. It can talk if you blow air through its neck hole. An old man trapped in a painting communicates by painting. A demon trapped in a mirror communicates by repeating your own phrases back to you. An ancient war machine trapped by the stasis field bomb seeks enemies who died thousands of years ago will self-destruct when it learns it lost the war. Consider giving your players speak with stones or speak with lock spells. Dungeons usually have those. Wouldn't that be interesting, right? Speak with stones. Does that exist in 5th ed? No, but make it up. A demonic succubus who has spent the last 1,000 years on a bed, trapped by the silver threads woven into a circle in the bedsheet. Pterodactyl riding barbarians who are looting the place. A time-displaced wizard caught in a paradox while exploring the place. Resets every 3 minutes. Yes, a graveyard nymph, Azrael. Now, something to experiment with. Right? Is there something unique? Something that is engaging? Could it be a riddle or a puzzle? Yeah, it could be a magical secret. Could be, well, a room with 2 doors of different sizes. Anything that's put into the small door emerges from the large door at twice the size and vice versa. Anything that goes through the doors twice in the same direction has terrible consequences. A machine that turns out finished products into raw goods and raw goods into ammunition. A sundial that controls the sun. A boat golem that flees from loud noises. You can direct it by standing at the back of it and shouting. 2 holes in the wall. If 2 limbs are put in the holes, they are swapped. If only 1 limb is put in the hole, it is severed. Can be used to graft new limbs onto amputees. Is there some, I don't know, mysterious ruin that doesn't necessarily have to do directly with the dungeon, but can add appropriate flavor, and the characters can play around with it? Of course. Now, do you have to have something like this in a dungeon? No, you don't have to. Will it make it more interesting? Oh, yeah. And that's a good way to feed your players details that you want them to know, because they'll glom onto these memorable moments, and they'll say, oh yeah, I remember the time, we found the sundial. It was a random sundial out in the desert. Who'd have thunk? But you know what? When we put the fin on the placard, and we turned it, and we noticed that we could control the height of the sun. Ooh, that was kind of creepy. That was kind of fun too. In fact, and then you're gonna get a whole story about how they went on to use it to solve the puzzle, because maybe that was to solve the puzzle. Something had to happen at midnight. Well, how do we keep it at midnight? Here's how we keep it at midnight. And lastly, something the players probably won't find. If we're going to be out in a desert region, there's a lot that we can have buried. It could be the entrance to a necropolis. It could be, hey, if we're going to be playing Forbidden Desert as our outdoor dungeon because we want to do something fun and different as a DM and players. The whole point is to find a lost city in an airship in order to get out of the Forbidden Desert. Will they probably find it? Well, you hope so in that game. Will they find a magical sword that was buried in the sands? You can generate this and it could exist. You know, offering a chance. What is a graveyard nymph? So, you know, nymphs and other spirits, like dryads, hang out in a particular location. You know, a dryad will have a grove or a tree that's a favorite to it. And a nymph is a product of an environment as well. And so in this case, it would be sort of a supernatural fae creature that has chosen to have this spiritual bond to a graveyard. Hey, Del. Welcome. So I want you to consider these points. I don't think I need to write them all down here. Now, when I make this more official, because a couple of you have been asking for these generation documents, I'll be happy to include this sort of stuff in there. But I put this together quickly before going live. You got bored with the paradox stuff. What do you mean by the paradox stuff? It's not for Elder Scrolls 6, so meh. Oh, goodness. I'm sorry, everyone. Again, I'm going off 3.5 hours of sleep here. This is everything you need to create a dungeon. And if you say, yeah, but what about... Oh, Bloodlines 2 announcement? Gotcha. If you say, well, what about making a fight? Well, that's a good thing to bring up. How do you go about making encounters and fights? You know, especially random encounters. That's a whole other, you know, that's a whole other... Jeez, sorry, everyone. The DMG, page 85, will take you through creating random encounters, which should support your story and don't always have to be monsters. It could be good stuff, too. Even good monsters. You are also exhausted? I guess there's a lot of that going around. Are you feeling all right, Trust the Flump? I know you said you were a little under the weather yesterday. I hope it hasn't gotten too bad. But, you know what? If you say, well, how do I make this? How do I balance out the EXP? That's what I was trying to find here real quick. There it was. All right. Combat encounter difficulty. Easy, medium, hard. Now, whether or not you use experience points, you can use the labels of the monsters in the monster manual to create encounters. Or if you come over here to a handy dandy website called Kobold Fight Club. Yeah, I got to get headed out for the night. All right, Lith. Hey, Lith, thank you for the donation, and thank you for for being here and spending some time with us. And if we say, well, let's populate encounters. We know that the party has to survive, whatever, 2 days, 3 days in the desert, or 40 days. Who knows? We say, all right, we have 5 players. They are 10th level. And we want to generate a hard encounter. And they're not in grassland. Pardon me. They're in the desert. And of course, there's a lot of other menus up here that we can manipulate and use. but we can just hit what's a random hard encounter? There you go. 3 revenants. Am I breaking the first rule? Now kobolds are going to come after me. But don't be afraid to use these tools that are in the books, or there's websites out there that are really going to help you out. Yeah, I think I'm going to be set by tomorrow night, which is what's important. Yeah, I agree. Especially if you're going to be running some legend content. If I read correctly and remember it, you were going to be running your end game D&D time on Friday. So yeah, random hard. Let's hit this again. 1 revenant and 5 whites. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to watch that continue to unfold. Oh, pardon me. So anyway, yes, it's all here for you. And oh,
What I got tonight?
what I got tonight? Plunder loot. These are freshly cracked out of a sealed brick of Mad Mage. I have 1 Dragon Heist left, and I have 3 Tomb of Annihilation. I also have 3 Storm King's Thunder with a sealed brick behind that is ready to go once these 3 sell down. Azrael has victory. Darkwolf, if you're out there, could you award some EXP to Azrael? So if you go through these prompts and you realize, all right, so I'm going to set him out in the middle of the desert. Do I need to map this out? Not necessarily. A lot of what we're doing for this week's outdoor dungeon is purely conceptual. You know, you want to generate an encounter table. Here we go. Lots of ways to go about that. By the way, this is just sticking to undead. If we go to any type, there we go. 2 Knoll Fangs of Yinogu and a white. 2 Lamia and 2 Revenants. Can you come up with stories? Why would there be 2 Lamias and a young copper dragon? Is the young copper dragon somehow getting information from the Lamia? And is the Lamia using their powers in order to, you know, convert the locals to, you know, woo them and get information to pass on to this copper dragon kind of overlord? You want the Tomb of Annihilation? Sure thing. So I hope these considerations help. The 5-room dungeon is there. Got this article on Goblin Punch about the dungeon checklist, the 7 things, you know, every dungeon should have, and especially Kobold Fight Club. When you pair that with what is in the Dungeon Master's Guide, look, there's nothing too special about this document up here. This is all just information that we took a prompt from the DMG, but we rolled randomly. And this is what we get. Some strange, could be Azrael. Look, it's the desert, not a lot of people come around. You never expect to get caught. Or if you do, maybe they're exhibitionists. KFC is an amazing tool. Oh, to draw people to a particular location or to modify their behavior. All right, so the conceptual idea behind this dungeon is here. However, I'm not going to map this one out, at least not right now.